Hey, folks. Happy Monday, and it sounds like a happy Monday at the Allen household there. We'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
All right, so let's talk about the Mets signing of Buck Showalter, which was a fait accompli 2 weeks ago, but the Mets went through the charade of interviews that really had no impact, and you knew that this guy was going to get the job the minute he started talking about the Jets. Now, my basic problem with the signing is this. It's not that Buck Showalter doesn't know baseball. He knows baseball. He's a good guy. He'll put on a good face. But Buck Showalter's not the best guy out there. The best guy out there is Mike Scioscia. The Mets didn't talk to him. Steve Cohen didn't leave his house to go fly over there and talk to him. He didn't even find out how much money he might want to coach this year if that's what it would take and everybody has a price. He didn't do any of that. And my problem is if you're in New York and you're going to spend resources on your team and you're going to say we're going to be a playoff team and everything else, then you know what? You have to go to the best, and you have to get the best. And they didn't get the best. They got Buck Showalter, a guy with a .506 winning percentage. They got the easiest.
Well, I'll come to Buck Showalter's defense in a sense here. It's like because I mean not because he's a former Yankee manager and he was on the Yankee broadcasts, but I do think he's a pretty astute baseball guy. I think it's a good hire for the Mets. Is he the best guy? I mean, Mike Scioscia apparently. I think he threatened the analytics people in Anaheim with a gun. Yeah, that's how much he's by analytics. And Buck, even though he's an older manager, is open to that. And any team right now that when they hire a manager, if they're either open to analytics or they're an analytics nut, we
don't know Scioscia's opinion on it. We don't. Scioscia hasn't come out and said I hate analytics. He hasn't.
No, but it's widely known, Russ. But I mean, I think it's a good hire.
Yeah, he's like a pro's pro. Like even though his winning percentage isn't high, like everybody knows, he knows what he's doing. He's been around the block, nothing he hasn't seen, those kinds of things. And sometimes that's, what you're trying to do it. But I think your analysis of that is right on, Russ, in terms of everything you said. But I don't think it's a bad hire. I mean, we'll see what he can do. You get what you pay for, though. Sometimes.
I think he's a better manager than Terry Collins, although that might be,
Actually, Terry Collins has been to the World Series more recently than Buck Showalter, so, that's arguable.
Well, I mean, yeah, I get it. I mean,
my connection to Terry Collins, by the way, goes back to the 1970s. He's from Eastern Michigan University, where I went to college, and
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, one of my jobs in the fall, I worked for the college newspaper, and I also worked for the local newspapers there. But in the summer, I actually spent one summer working for the information services, and the sports information director there would utilize me to track down all the former EMU athletes and get information for his radio broadcast when the baseball team would play. And I remember tracking down Terry Collins, who was a career minor leaguer at the time, getting his stuff. So
former Buffalo Bison's manager. And Eck, I see you have your family in the background there.
Yes. I'm on the set of the Land of Puppeteria, my son's YouTube channel.
It looks like a set of Stranger Things. Like I don't know what I'm looking at.
I've never seen that show, Russ. I've never seen one episode.
Yeah, seen Stranger Things. That's a good one.
Show.
Is it? Okay.
It's a really good show.
Do any of you guys watch Yellowstone?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
I'm loving it this year.
But I'm not
it's a good one. Good twist. I thought, I'm behind like a week, but the one I just saw was a good twist involving the running for governor.
Yeah, there's another twist coming. That's all I can tell you.
I don't know. Do you think I would like it, Kevin? You know the kind of stuff we like.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. It's borderline for you guys.
Yeah,
I liked it. I also liked the Jeremy Renner, Mayor of Kingstown, is the same producer who's doing Yellowstone.
I started watching it. It's okay, but
and yesterday was the first episode of the prequel, the 1883.
Yeah, I had no interest.
I thought it was pretty good, but I'm a little skeptical about how it goes forward. So we'll see. Anyway.
I'll tell you the biggest hoax about Yellowstone is in the episode. I don't know if Kevin saw this yet, but it's only a line. The line is It's everything you don't like in a person, a 60-year-old white guy. And to call Kevin Costner 60 years old is a lie.
Yeah, he's 70. You're right.
He's
No,
not 70. He's going to be 67.
Well, there was the young protester said, and then the 60-year-old man, and he thanked her. Remember? And
yes.
Yeah, the character.
Yeah,
So
he's not 60.
Yeah, no, he's not. No, but I like that show. I'm very much looking forward to the prequel.
Yeah.
That's coming out as that as well. You know,
Well, it's on your DVR. Here's the thing I don't like too. Whether you want to see it or not, it's on your DVR under Yellowstone, and it will fool you into watching like 10 seconds of it to see.
Right.
Well, this week's episode, I'm not giving anything away, but this week's episode, the first 5 minutes is basically a preview of the 1883. They use it. They mix it into the Yellowstone. So they're very clever. They know everybody's watching Yellowstone, so they're.
I want to watch Dan Elliott trim his
well. It's interesting. Before we came on air, I was talking to Russ and Mike about the fact that it was my Christmas this weekend because my family, basically, my son couldn't get any time off, so the only 2 days he could get off were this past weekend. So we had Christmas yesterday. But what I like best about when my family comes home is my whole family is all into television. My son-in-law works in the theater, and everybody knows. All my kids, everything know everything about movies and everything that's going on, and I'm a little behind in all that. I'm a little busy right now in my life, and so they all come in, and I just tape. I do the Vulcan mind probe on all, and I pull out what they're all watching, and then for one of the Christmas gifts, we have a family book club now where we've been assigned a reading assignment, and then we're gonna watch. It's the Underground Railroad. If you've seen the series, which I haven't.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Anyway, so the book apparently is pretty good. Some member of my family has read it, so everybody's got to read the book, and then we're gonna have a discussion of it and watch the series this summer when we all get together again. So, looking forward to that as well. But I've learned so much about television that I haven't seen yet over the last 48 hours. So there's like 6 or 7 series, including the new Hawkeye series, which
Hawkeye's good.
Which I haven't seen yet, but they told me that I need to see it. So
I'll give you a quick indication. I'll give you a quick indication. My summer, while I was working on refurbishing our patio deck, at the same time on my phone, I was watching episodes of NCIS. I've gotten through 16 seasons of NCIS.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see where the show
seems
went.
like torture.
I wanted to see where the show went.
We're just starting Mad Men. We have never watched Mad Men. We're just starting that.
Wow, you just
started
Mad
Men.
Never watched Mad Men.
That is so your kind of series.
I know, that's why we've been waiting for the perfect time, and my wife took.
You'll like it. Luckily, it's timeless. That's the good news.
I've never watched Mad Men, and I've never watched Breaking Bad. Those are ones I have to watch.
Same thing with Breaking Bad. I have not seen, even though I recognize. And the other one that people say is the best series ever is The Wire, which I haven't seen.
I've watched.
Yeah, I've never seen The Wire. I'll tell you the one. If I had to recommend one HBO series, and it's not The Sopranos, it would be Deadwood. Deadwood.
I've seen it.
It's a little coarse. It's a little, there are a lot of MFs and all the other stuff. But
Mike,
it's
you're a little coarse too, Mike. So.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I can beat everybody by saying I haven't seen 1 second of either The Sopranos or Game of Thrones. I haven't seen 1 second of either.
I haven't seen a second.
I got to give you the speech I give to everyone who there's so many people that write on Facebook with, like it's a badge of honor that they have not seen any Game of Thrones. And I like to remind people to do that at its peak, 43 million people.
Oh, I know.
43 million people have watched the Game of Thrones. There are 338 million people in this country. So I am in the minority because I have watched all of the Game of Thrones, and you are in the majority because you have not watched.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
But it's fantastic. It was fantastic, and I'm not one of those people who get into I'm not a Lord of the Rings type. I never watched the Lord of the Rings movies, but I loved Game of Thrones.
I didn't watch Lord of the Rings.
Well, the thing about Game of Thrones is that they killed somebody every week, so they force you to gotta tune in to see who gets it this week.
Who's getting it next?
That person?
Real quick story. That's really funny. I want to share with you guys, and we'll get right to the show. I promise. So my son this weekend. I said this to Kevin already, but no one else has really seen this. My son this weekend. My son does his puppet stuff and does animal conservation, and combines the two together. So he made a big giant like mascot sized puppet last year called Manta Claus, which is like a manta ray and a Santa Claus hat on. It's life size that you wear around. It's a very silly costume. Anyway, he contacted the New Jersey State Aquarium in Camden, New Jersey, which is really a good aquarium, and said, "Hey, would you mind if on Saturday I walked around and just talked to the kids in my Manta Claus costume and just gave out cheer and all that stuff?" And I thought, no way in hell they're gonna let him do this. And then Friday night at 10 o'clock at night, we got an email. Yeah, we'd love to have you come tomorrow. Come on by. So it was a panic after that. But I wanted to show you this quick little video that he did of it. It's only a minute long, but it's really pretty hilarious. It might get you in the Christmas spirit. I was so impressed. I was so amazed by this kid. I just really have to show this for all you guys. You guys will like it, I think. This is my son dancing around as like a crazy Manta Claus in a crazy Manta Claus costume for just a minute. Here we go. Wait, hold on. So I'm doing this the right way. I can share screen. Sorry about that.
Well, why don't we show it at the end, so you can.
All right, I'll show it at the end. That sounds good. All right, that's fine.
Let's get
Show
started.
it at the very end to end the show.
Yep.
And you got it. All right, so let's start it up. Ready? Here we go. All right, it's Monday, December 20th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and the evil finger has.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, HockeyBuzz.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And the not goings in the hockey world is starting to predominate the news now. And that is all signs now point to practically a miracle now if we were to see the NHLers in the Olympics. Is that where we are, Kevin?
There's no miracle. It's not.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's not. I'm really shocked by this. It turns out that negative Mike was right all along. That we've gotten to this point. It didn't happen quite for the reason that I thought it would, which is that there was a great fear over the COVID if it happened, but it's about 3 to 5 weeks because they can't get a straight answer, and more importantly, it's about the desire for an 82 game schedule, which all the players want to get. They want to have their financial well-being, but all signs seem to be pointing that they're going to reach that agreement. And it was almost, from what I'm hearing, almost like an avalanche. Like there weren't all that many players that were all hot and bothered about it, but a few important ones were. And the one they started talking to each other. Next thing you know, it seems like it's going to be a landslide now that they're not going to go.
I remember I got to a high of 50, and then I kept dropping down too. Mike was always the lowest right from the start. But the interesting thing is, Kev, I think it came down to like the argument where I think the league could just simply say to the players, well, at this point, do you want to make your full salary or do you want to go play in the Olympics? Because you won't be able to do both this year.
Well, that's that's kind of just what I said. It was really about the 82 game schedule, trying to get it in. And because, in the back, like people were still saying, that China's not going to make us do that. But then other people would say, well, they're China, they might make you stay 3 weeks. That is their law, so.
Well, even
now,
though
there's one thing I wonder about though, and that we haven't heard the announcement yet. And it's so assumed that it's happening that they're not going to go. I'm just curious if there is a backroom negotiation going on with China.
No. I mean, what it seems to be is that it's whether the NHL comes out and says, because they had a right in the CBA agreement that they could, based on scheduling situations, they could say we're not going to the Olympics unless it's that or the NHL and the NHLPA came out like they did over the weekend and made a statement. Whether it's a joint statement, because I mean, right now, the players want to go, but the league over the last month has said this is just not feasible. So
they don't want to be the heavy though, and I don't blame them because the players wanted to be in charge of this. It really should be the players that say they're going to be out of it without the league. Like, it's up to me. It's up to them. It's up to the PA to actually step up here and say, all right, you know what? We've decided as a group we're not going. But now we're hearing like there might be a joint thing. It's like, this is the one time they should leave the league out of it.
Yeah. Well, they should. I mean, although like like most of my readers don't seem to understand that they keep blaming Bettman for this.
I know
it's hilarious that Bettman really he doesn't. The owners really didn't want them to go, even if there was no COVID. They would be rooting for them not to go.
Correct.
The owners didn't want to go in 2014. They didn't want
to. No, that's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So, yeah, I mean, these people that want to blame, Bettman, he's going to applaud when the players reach this conclusion. So
now the thing is, I mean, basically, I don't know the exact number right now, but like for example, teams like Toronto, they've had 4 games postponed. There's really no gap in the schedule other than the 3 weeks during the Olympic break for them to make up those games. So now building availability, there wasn't like a second schedule buried deep in the recesses of the NHL offices. They've had to sort of go on the fly and do this, and they may have to adjust again because more games might be postponed. But the only time to make up those games are the 3 weeks in February. So at this time, it's just completely implausible for them to go to the Olympics.
Although a GM made a good point to me about this very thing. He said, well, that actually isn't true, Kevin. He said, what we're saying is there's no way to do it under the way we normally do business.
Right.
But he said, we're in this kind of thing where we get all hot and bothered if we have to play 4 games in 5 nights and those kind of things. But he said in the AHL, they do kinds of things like that all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you can't do it.
They play 3 games on a weekend, Friday.
He just says, we just act as if, you can't do that, but you can, if we had to, we could.
Right. Absolutely. And we've seen it. We've seen them do it kind of. And I think that, so there's no backdoor negotiation. We don't think that's not possible. The other thing that I've heard, which is kind of fascinating, that one person told me that had been discussed is should they decide not to go to the Olympics, that they would actually consider taking like a 10-day break right now.
Well, okay.
They can't do that.
Okay, this is the problem.
Wait a minute, they can do that. They are going to do that.
Well, 10 days? No, I heard a week. I can't.
Yeah. I don't know if it's 10 days, but they're going to take a break.
Well, they're going to take a break.
If they find there's no Olympics, they shut things down. Kevin, is that what you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Here's what I was told is that first of all, a lot of players have counted on this. They've got they've promised Disney to their kids and all kinds of things. And so the idea was, and they also think it would be beneficial if we shut down. So there's a little bit of a break, and then everybody takes a vacation. More importantly, we clear the dressing room of COVID. We reset, and then they come back, and then we use those 2 weeks to cram in those games.
But here's the problem. I heard just recently, just on the 32 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick, free club plug there, that one of the concerns of the teams are the players going on vacation someplace because then they'd be more exposed to COVID. They basically want, if they're going to shut down, they want them to sequester and not be exposed. And that's the problem right now. And this is why a pause will not work, because this Omicron variant is so transmissible that, okay, all the players that are positive right now, use the Leafs as an example, 7 players are positive. By the time they come back from the break on the 27th, those players will probably be negative and be ready to play. But the 14, 15 other players who are negative, they could very well get COVID at that point. You're not going to stop anything with the pause. That's the problem.
Well,
that's exactly the argument the players are using, Mike, to might as well have the pause, because no matter what they do, they're still going to be it. So you're not going to be able to put players in a bubble for 21 days. So you just at some point you just got to sort of trust them.
Well, here's the other misnomer.
And I think a good time to trust them is over Christmas, to be honest, because this is the time when people are more at home with family. They are less.
This is when they go to parties and have a lot of people over.
I mean, I think that there is some smartness about it.
All right, let's talk about smartness. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about smartness because, like, the NFL now has the easiest policy. Everybody's talked about it. So I'm going to use Baker Mayfield as an example, the Cleveland Browns quarterback who has been tweeting for days and now Instagramming for days that he feels fine and he's sure he's going to test negatively and he's sure he's going to play today. He's not. Right. He's tested positive every time. Just because you may feel fine, it doesn't mean you still don't have any of the symptoms of anything. Not everything is outward. I mean, is he taking his temperature every day? There's other factors here, and athletes are always going to say, I feel fine. If you let them, and that's the bad part about the Connor Hellebuck thing was like, you can't let the athletes decide because the athlete 9 times out of 10 will say he feels fine.
But Russ, this is the direction this is going. And you've got, you had Hellebuck, and I believe I listened to most of what Yzerman said. It was basically going down that road. If these players feel fine, then they should be playing, and that's what's going on in the NFL.
No, that's not what Yzerman said.
Okay, then
I mean, what Yzerman said is that there's been discussion about that, and what he basically started with is no one knows what the right thing is.
Right.
That's what he said, and he just said, everybody's trying to make the right decision, but there is no right decision.
Right, and based on what's the evidence available right now. I mean, caution is the right way to go. But there was a doctor on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast on Saturday that said that the Omicron variant could be the best news that we get because it's more transmissible, it's weaker. Most of the people who are getting it are asymptomatic. If obviously the people with pre-existing conditions are always at risk, but it may be something that snuffs out the earlier versions of COVID, and if it's something that would be endemic, and that means something like the common cold. That eventually it could get to that point. Now, if that's the case, you don't shut down players when they have a cold. So that's where it may go, but right now we don't know for sure.
That's the problem. We don't know.
I mean, that's the problem. Yeah.
It's a good theory that he has, and it makes sense. It's logical.
That's what it is, a theory.
But at the same time, it's just a theory, and there's no question that we could be vastly overrating or vastly underrating this thing at any time. Like that's really what I think about it. It's really there's points, and that's why when you see the other side of it, the no maskers or whatever, you guys might be 100% right. But you know what? It's like the reality is, I'm kind of like being a little bit of unjust there, but I'm just saying that there is a being too careful or not being careful enough. We are at risk of doing both those things all the time.
Right now, between now and the end of the 23rd, which is the last day of games until the break, there are 10 games remaining on the schedule. If you postpone those 10 games and schedule them in February, there probably wouldn't be that much of an effect. But again, I don't know whether shutting down now until the 27th will have that much of an effect in terms of positives going forward. So that's why I'm saying I think they're gonna do as much as they can to tough through the next 3 or 4 days, get to the break, and then afterward, play it on a case by case basis. But that's why I think the Olympics are a foregone conclusion that they're done, because they're going to have to schedule the 30 or 40 some odd games that have been postponed during those 3 weeks.
Here's the one other thing, though. There's a scientist online that basically said it may be what Mike said. It may be less severe, or there may be more people that have more immunity. And so that doesn't mean that it's less severe to everybody then.
Right, like these guys you're getting. Remember, every player except for very few in the league have.
But they don't all have boosters.
Everybody. I'm getting my boosters.
Yeah, we're seeing a sample size of very healthy people who are all well vaccinated.
Yeah, right.
Yesterday, my daughter's neighbor had a son who had to go to the ER, and it's a 10-hour wait. To be seen at an ER because it's overrun by COVID.
Right.
So if you're at the ER, so some people out there are having severe.
People who aren't vaccinated this is affecting them a lot harder, obviously.
Yeah. So, it just depends on where you're at.
And I know a person now who has it that, was vaccinated twice and has it.
I was vaccinated twice, and I got the Delta variant, and it was horrible. I mean, I was symptomatic and for a week, I mean,
you could you could be vaccinated 3 times and still get it. That's why
and I'm the picture of in shape, like I'm the most in shape person you'll ever meet. So it's like completely like that's like I think that I make those players look like they're lazy. So I mean, just like to me, that's
we all agree
that that's possible.
I'm really buff.
All right, so let's talk a little hockey.
Yeah.
Little hockey too, instead of just talking the COVID hour. And I'll start with this, and it's a transition because it is COVID related. I talked to somebody today, this morning, really early, and they're like, the Montreal Canadiens are being really aggressive. And I said, what do you mean? They're being really aggressive. This is a general manager. They're calling up everybody about everybody. He said,
in terms of what? In terms of
shopping them, yeah, like Sherratt, Savard. He said personally, as I have it written down here, he said personally Sherratt, Savard, and Gallagher, but also Petrie and Hoffman and Toffoli. Like there's just players, and he says part of the reason he thinks they are being ultra aggressive is one, they obviously want to start this rebuild and do things the right way, but they're also afraid that if for some reason this goes worse, because remember in Montreal now we have no fans. It's completely, we had no fans, so Montreal
that was one game.
But yeah. Montreal definitely is a little bit more afraid than everybody else. They're afraid that something happens to the season. Those players, they're never going to move them. And that's that. And there's a fear that if they should do it sooner than later before this whole thing.
Yeah, you have to find buyers. You have to find willing buyers for that now, where right now, there's not a lot of teams with cap space or the will to want to make those moves.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't do anything right now. We're in the middle of a freeze. We need to.
The freeze right now, but the one you can do things. You can, and you can't make any official moves, but you can definitely talk to people. And there are some. One of the GMs years ago told me that this was his favorite time to talk to people, was because he could talk to people without worrying that if he made an offer to somebody or thought, what do you think of this? They weren't going to turn around and use that against him and play him, and lose the player right now. Well, right now that they can't, nothing can actually happen. So you can actually discuss things.
Let's tick off the names that you discussed, because Sherratt is going to get moved because Sherratt's an expiring contract. Yeah. He was in the Stanley Cup final last year. He's a tough defenseman. There are teams that need left-hand defensemen like Edmonton that he would probably be a good fit for as a rental.
Right.
Gallagher has got 5 more years at $6.5 million.
Yeah, Gallagher's hard to move because it's not just 5 more years. He's a beat up man.
Yes, he's a smaller player who's got a lot of wear on those tires. I'm sorry, Toffoli had a really good year last year, but he's got term remaining. He's got 2 more years at $4.25, which isn't a killer, but he's never been a fast player.
No, nobody's touching that deal right now.
Yeah. Christian Dvorak.
I'm not so sure about that. Wait a second. Can we stop on Toffoli for a second?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, the thing about Toffoli is that he has shown an ability to show up in key games and has a really good playoff history, obviously, of winning cups, and also, with Montreal, it just different situation. Toffoli has actually, does have some value in terms of
except the extra year is a killer.
It does. I mean, the reason we say that, Eck, is because they don't get moved. I mean,
I'm not saying that they usually don't get moved, and you're right, they usually don't get moved. Yeah. Sometimes they do, and if they do get moved, it's because of a specialty that player has, and to me, the specialty of Toffoli is the playoffs.
Has there been a player in the last 2 years with term, other than the special cases like Eichel, that has moved at the deadline or before?
At the deadline, the last one I can remember was the Callahan St. Louis. That
was going to say St. Louis one, and I thought of right away. But there's
that's a while ago.
Yeah, how long ago?
Oh, no, it is a while ago. There's no question about it.
4 or 5 6 years ago, at least.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends what. It just has to be a perfect storm of things, in order for it to happen. That's what happened with the Rangers. With the Rangers, there was a perfect storm to get St. Louis.
It's not an impossibility since Jim Rutherford is now a general manager in the league now. So anything is possible. But Russ, Gorton with the Rangers, the players that he moved out, I don't remember any of them being guys with significant term. And all the names that you mentioned, Dak, Petrie's got 3 years. Savard, they just signed. He's got 3 years. I'm not saying they're immovable, but, they're
And you're going
guys.
to mention Dvorak now. Nobody's touching that Dvorak deal either.
No, he
No,
wasn't mentioned.
I brought up Petrie to a GM, and he said he's 34 years old.
Right.
Yeah, but he's like, what are you thinking? I said, well, I'm just asking,
And Gordon's mindset is not, okay, I'm going to trade these guys, as a shakeup and bring somebody else with term back. He wants draft picks and prospects. And the problem is with guys who are rentals, that's easier to do. With guys who have term left, unless the team loves the player, I don't think general managers are going after those guys. So
even the Kings wouldn't take Toffoli back with that term on him. No way.
Vancouver might. He did really well in Vancouver, but
yeah, they can't afford that. I don't think they can.
Right, it would have to be a player.
These kind of guys that we're talking about are not obviously not rentals, so they're not looked upon as rentals. Which also does open up though the rest of the league. Then it's not just that if you have guys with term, another team with that actually that doesn't necessarily make a player right now, that player comes.
But other than Sherratt, you're talking about 4 or 5 players that you would have to make hockey deals with, and hockey deals are more off-season type deals and not deadline deals. So I think they might be able to pull off one, but I don't know about
it. The Canadiens are stuck right now. They have some deals there, and again, even that Dvorak deal, he's not a second line center, and he got paid like a second line center. So now that's a problem too.
Yeah. No, another person told me that
everybody argued with me about it, but
no, I mean I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm not, and I'm not. And honestly,
no,
I'm not
you did.
Oh no, I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing about. Yeah, right. Well, the second line player part, yes. But I'm not arguing the concept that you guys are all saying that these guys are impossible, very hard to move. I know that. I'm trying to play the other side of it, of what the small possibilities are that are there, and it's not always easy to play that side. And this is one of those cases where it's not. But the other thing I will say is, one of the guys I talked to, so I talked to 2 GMs, 1 owner. One of the guys I talked to said that they had gotten this call about all these players from Montreal, but they went back and said, how about Carey Price? This is something you're going to think about, moving Carey Price,
That's all up to him. He's got the
and he was told flat out no. So I mean that so for what, and like everything has an expiration date, so maybe that changes down the line. But Carey Price is not something that they're willing to talk about right now.
I'll give you the name of a player who's got 1 year after this year left, who could be somebody that would draw attention. That'd be Drouin. And every time Drouin's name is mentioned, I think of one team. I think of Colorado because he played junior with Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah, that's what everybody.
And I don't know how much
that's Colorado what they need. I'm not sure they would be the team.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. Maybe down the line they might because he's under cost control, Russ. He's at $5.5 million, and
he's right at the point right now, Mike, where it's like, was he amazing with Nathan McKinnon because Nathan McKinnon is just amazing? Everybody's amazing with Nathan McKinnon.
Now we've probably found out 65% of that is true.
He has shown
that's still really good though.
He has shown.
I'm still in the Drouin. I'm hanging on in the Drouin fan camp. Yeah, I still do
as long as you don't play him at center, which they tried to do, which is dumb.
Yeah.
And then fine. But and they've done that with Galchenyuk and they've done that with Drouin. It's like when you need a center, go and get a center, not a guy who you're going to move to center. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Can we talk about that? Go ahead.
Sorry. A couple teams that are streaking right now. I wanted to talk about a little bit more. Who are still playing too, and at times, the Flyers are one of the few teams that are still playing. They are streaking. I think that some of they're continuing to win. Not commandingly, not.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not like a decisive streaking.
Not super incredibly. One of the things that did mention is that I talked to somebody down there and they said, I said, do you think why do you think the COVID thing's kind of avoiding you guys to a degree? And he's like, well, remember we got killed with it last year, and it is interesting that their theory is that they had so many players that they at the one point last year during the season that were missing that they feel like there's an immunity sort of build up with them.
I think they have a filtration system in the league, which
they have an incredible filtration system in that Wells Fargo Center. They do have that.
Yeah,
but which we learned a lot about. The media learned way more about that than we should have.
Yes, we did.
Just
they spent a lot of money on it.
I know more about how their filtration system works and how the filtration works in my house right now.
You know more about that than some HVAC guys out there.
I do. I'm afraid I made me think about my own house. Yeah, so I know we're not that good.
Well, can we talk about the of course, me being Mr. Negative, the negative of this streak, which would be a skid, continuing with the New York Islanders who lose to Vegas yesterday.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
speaking of-
And former goalie Robert Leonard.
yeah, the Islanders, and they played well in that game. It's just good. It's they really did. Like I watched that game because there weren't many games to watch, and
Yeah.
I watched this. And Sorokin was pretty awesome in that game. I feel bad for him actually, just because he hasn't been the problem. It's not Sorokin.
No,
at
he's
all.
not the problem.
He's actually, if anything, keeping this from being way more disastrous than it is. But yeah, and it's hard to say that with a team that's that bad right now. But oh my gosh, that's something.
Well, at what point you stop becoming a team just having a bad start and we start saying, this is who you really are.
You're a bad team.
No, this is who they are. This is who they are.
Kevin, I don't recall, and it's not just me, but I can't recall a team that so many people were wrong about than the New York Islanders. And the only thing that I've heard that makes a little bit of sense that people pointed out is they had their success going to conference finals in years where, COVID was a factor. The seasons were shorter. They were in the bubble. They, the 56 game regular season, they have an older roster, and maybe playing over 82 games, that's a fact, but they haven't played the 82 games. They should. No. You would think that if that was the factor, they would tail off at the end of the year instead of having this ridiculously bad start.
Yeah, I thought last year maybe they benefited from just playing against the teams they knew really well in their own division. The style and brand of hockey they play, that's pretty effective in the Metropolitan, or it was. It isn't this year because they haven't been able to play at that level. And, I think it's sort of like rock formation where every year it sort of gets a little worse and then finally it collapses. Well, they got rid of Taves, which is a significant player. Then they got rid of Leddy, and then they've lost Polak in the injury. Yeah. Now that formation has fallen over. That defense, even though statistically it's their offense, because if you look at their defense, it's middle of the pack. Right. But, first of all, the defense should be up near the top because it's a Barry Trotz team. But that offense, it's so low that they really can't win like that. You can't win if you're going to be down in the 26-27 range.
Yeah, it's interesting because the only reason I picked Carolina over the Islanders to win the Metro was because of that road trip. But I still thought the Islanders would have a good season. I didn't see all this hitting at once, but it has, and they really have no way of digging out of it. They really don't.
Yeah, I wonder if we sort of about that road trip. They were just in Detroit, so I got a chance to talk to some folks here coming in, and they all sort of dismissed the road trip as we went 500. Right. That's kind of what we did okay. Like that's
then when they got home, it all fell apart too.
Well, yeah, like that's what I'm wondering. Was it the psychology of that road trip? Yeah, road trip angle.
Right. I mean, the problem is, you go 500 on the road like that, and for that many games, I mean, when you're talking about not getting home until after basically Thanksgiving, the confidence of the team is shot. Like, it doesn't matter how well you're doing.
They were home like a day here, a day there, but they weren't actually home for anything.
But there's no confidence if you're not a team like that. A team that we all expect to win builds on the fact that they can dominate teams, and then builds on the fact that they're really good.
Well,
continually losing.
But in terms of confidence, they actually played better on that road trip than they did when they got back. I think it's going to go figure that. Although, we're just underplaying the effects of the COVID and the injuries, where they were sick sick being relative. They were on the COVID list, and they had some injuries when most of their downward spiral was happening.
Well, Kev, what I'm going to be interested in, and I think it's going to be fascinating, is what Lou does, because this was a team that was built, that is structured salary-wise to win now, and they have players, the core group, the Anders Lees and the Brock Nelsons and the Pageaus, who are all under long-term contract. And now, if this is not a blip, and if this is where this team is going, how does Lou respond? You would think that there would have to be, and maybe this is where Montreal goes or Vancouver goes. There are teams out there that are probably going to be looking for hockey deals. here's a team that's going to have to make a hockey deal because he doesn't have rentals. He's got guys who've got 4, 5, 6 years left on contracts. And if they don't work, then they have to move them or shake things up to get them to play better.
Yeah, the Islanders only had 4 home losses last year. So they definitely are a completely different team, even if they have most of the same players. It's just like Kevin said, it's just what it's turned into. But I can't use those other excuses, Eck, because look what the Penguins are doing. The Penguins could have easily mailed it in, called it a day, said the era is over, the streak is over, and they went on a streak of killing 35 penalties until yesterday when the Devils scored a power play goal. Like, they're playing great. They really are.
Right. And everybody's wrong about them too, just in the other way. I mean, people thought
I was
it. So
I just want to say that.
And you got to appreciate the way they've done that too. I mean, they've made Evan Rodriguez a player. He's just been Mr. Versatility on that team. He's played everywhere they need him. They're just getting and the goalie, we were all complaining about their goalie. He was terrible. They should have gotten someone, and he's been fine. So they've done a good job. They didn't they were going to trade Zucker. They didn't trade him. Everything's sort of
people are so over the top impressed with the Penguins, and it'll be interesting. I mean, if Malkin does return back, which and really is
I want to say this before that, Eck.
Yeah.
We have to give Hextall credit. Being a former goalie, he didn't panic about Jarry at all. He didn't say anything about Jarry other than he's coming back and he's our goalie and we're not making any changes.
Well, there were people there I talked to that really did believe in Jarry as well and really thought that was just a bad.
When you mentioned Malkin, the interesting thing about what we expect to be announced in the next couple of days about not going to the Olympics. Malkin was ramping up. He's getting pretty close to returning. Same thing with Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel was talking about a January return. Will that shift that down into second gear to say, okay, you're not going to the Olympics. Don't rush. We want you to be healthy for the playoffs. Take it easy. I think
even more interesting about that, Mike, to me is could some of those players, like someone in our chat room, Funky Cold Zine, I think, was asking, could Ovechkin still go?
Yeah, I've thought about that.
I could. I mean, there's not a rule that says he can't.
It's interesting. I don't know. He's become sort of a much more like a different player in his later years. Like I don't think before he was a bit of a maverick, but he really is kind of a team guy. He's a Capitals guy. Yeah. He doesn't.
He's happy in the Washington area, even living there.
No, that's the right word. He's happy.
Yeah,
that is exactly the right word. You look at him and his son.
Yeah.
And like he's happy. So I'm not sure he would do that to his owner. Like I think he'd call him and talk it over with him.
What happens when he gets that after the announcement is made, 5 minutes after he's going to get a call on his cell phone from an unknown number, and he's going to have a conversation with the head of another country that's going to try and talk him into playing? Is he really going to turn him down? He's never turned him down for anything.
Don't you remember, Russ? I mean, in 2018, he had the support of Ted Leonsis to say if he was able to go, that he would let him go. I think
Ted would do that again. And I think, but here's the other thing about Ovechkin. Here's the other thing you have to remember about Ovechkin. As much as he loves Russia, he is having an epic season.
Yeah.
So the idea,
that's for sure. Yeah.
And he's having a season that just literally is beyond belief to a degree. Mm-hmm. And if he goes over there and gets stuck for 3 to 5 weeks, then what?
Although I somehow believe, and this is my conspiratorial mind here, that they will not keep a Russian superstar, since Russia and China have such good relations, in quarantine for 5 weeks, when opposed to the U.S. or Canada, who have diplomatically boycotted the Olympics. I think they would keep them for as long as they possibly could.
All we need is World War III to start because of this,
right? I'm not a conspiracy theorist whatsoever, but I think Mike's right.
Yeah, I think Mike's right too.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
I mean, there's conspiracy theories, and then there's just politics.
He'll just make up some nonsensical story as to why he didn't have to stay.
Yeah, but I do think, I'm just not sure he would go just for what X said. He's having an incredible season. And
Yeah.
the other thing is that the start of his happiness was that wondrous season when he got to do keg stands,
Right.
because they won the cup. And I think he would like to win that cup again and
Yeah.
do that all over
He
again.
enjoyed
I think
that a lot.
Yeah, he did. And I think he sort of realized too about how once you win, how your fan base looks at you.
Yeah.
And I think his entire life just came together when he won that cup, where it completed him. Like he just thought, like, wow. And so I don't know. I mean, he is tight with Putin, and Putin's his guy, and he wants to play, and he is Mr. Nationalism, but he also is beholden to this Washington Capitals group. He likes, he's one of those guys. I don't think of Russians as wanting to stay with one team like that. To me, that seems like more of a North American thing. Right. But I think to Ovi, him being a Cap the whole time and being part of that and having his banner hanging there, I think all that's important to him. So I'm not sure he will go.
Well, let me ask this question, because, okay, again, I'm going on the assumption that the announcement's going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours. Hockey Canada came out this morning and said, we're not going to the Spengler Cup. So you would immediately think, and there's what is it, the Channel 1, Russ, the tournament that's going on in Russia with Claude Julien is coaching Canadian.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so you would have to expect that for example, Canada, that the roster of their Olympic squad is coming from the same group of players that played in the Channel 1 Cup or in the Spengler Cup.
Right.
So that's what we're going to see.
Holding the Spengler back. I think that is a big reason. Yeah.
I want to show you guys something that I think is absolutely fascinating about this Gretzky. I saw this, and there's a couple things I wanted to show you real fast. So this, I just pressed the wrong button. I'm okay. We're good. Get back here. Okay, here we go. So sharing a screen here with you guys. This is going to be a little bit hard to read, but I'm going to go give you the idea of it. Then you can at least see it. Okay, share the screen. I did it right. Come on now. All right. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the deal.
Just read it. Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So Ovechkin versus Gretzky in goal scoring, and how that's played out is absolutely fascinating, because when you look at the graph of Gretzky's goal scoring, okay, I'll just draw it out for you guys with my hand. When you look at the graph of Gretzky's goal scoring, it starts off, up here where he's just flying high, okay, and then over time, Gretzky's scoring kind of just dips down and goes down, and then eventually falls off. That's Gretzky's career. Ovechkin's career is a friggin' straight line. It's like from the beginning to now. It's just like, it's amazing when you look at it. It's just completely, and now now when you're looking at 36, okay, goals per game, Ovechkin's at 0.8, and Gretzky was at 0.2 at 36. And it's just it's fascinating when you play this out. Where at age 20, Gretzky was at 1.2, and Ovechkin was at 0.8, which is where he is now.
We could say Ovechkin definitely trains harder than Gretzky ever did in his life. I mean, we could say that for sure. Yeah,
it's absolutely insane. like how much that is playing into it, and his consistency, and just the fact that now he's at the point. And someone I know keeps updating this. If he played 5 more years in the NHL, which it seems like, why couldn't he? I mean, he's just killing it. Now he only has to average 33 goals a year.
Sure, but again, we're saying that these are going to be completely injury-free years. He's going to play 70-something games a year for the next 5 years. That's a lofty goal, actually.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do it, but Russ is right. I mean, it is a lofty goal.
No, it's a very lofty goal. I agree.
But he has been one of those players that has not been hurt all that often.
No.
Yeah.
He's bigger than most players he comes up against.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Gretzky wasn't hurt that often either until he just had a bad neck, and his neck. Yeah,
Gretzky got hurt early after he got early in his years with LA. 91, 92, I think he had some injuries,
right.
And then of course he came back in 93 and stabbed every Leaf fan in the back.
Right. I almost forgot about that. Yeah.
You're right. Absolutely true. Okay, so here we go. I was bringing up something that I thought was a lot of fun, and I'm trying to find it. So Mike, continue with one more thing, and then we'll get into this thing. Really,
one more thing.
If you got something, if you don't, that's fine. I'm sorry about that.
You caught me.
My computer is completely whacked. Did you see the list on Reddit of the most annoying fan bases per fans?
Oh yes, yes.
No,
which was a complete load of crap. I mean,
that means the Leafs are number one,
right?
Oh, by a lot, by a lot, Russ. By a country mile they were.
No, but this is the way it was phrased. Fan bases that basically are frustrated or annoyed by their own fan base. That was how it was worded.
All right, I'll tell you exactly.
That means that all Leaf.
Which NHL team has the most annoying fan base? That's the question, Mike. Straight up.
Okay, I saw a different one.
The one I saw was which. Okay, so
is that okay? Go ahead.
So people were able to give their first, second, and third place results in this, and they were scored accordingly. So 50% of the people, actually 53% of the people, had Toronto as one of those three. So more than half the. No one else. The Montreal came in second. Montreal came in second with 20%, and then basically everybody else is just a curve down. But the and then I did have a Montreal fan who I can say this because he's French, I guess. But he said if people could understand, if people read, if everybody in America could understand French, they would have Montreal right up there with Toronto. But they don't have the ability to understand.
I think that person's right.
What Montreal's saying all the time. So you only have half of the Montreal fans that you're really seeing.
We don't get all of it.
They're annoying. They're annoying in two languages.
But so they did top it off, Toronto, Montreal, and that's they are the two epic teams, right? So that makes sense. But after that, it gets really kind of interesting. Third place, Boston Bruins fans, which I really don't necessarily think of as being that obnoxious. But people have them in third.
They're chows. They're they call them mass holes for a reason.
Give me a team, Mike. And I'll tell you where they came in.
Vancouver.
Okay, yeah, Vancouver comes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're six actually. So what do you think, Russ?
Rangers.
Who?
Rangers.
The Rangers. Yeah, the Rangers. Surprisingly enough, not in. I'm sorry, I'm wrong about that. The Rangers came in as right behind the Canucks. It's 7.
Yeah, I can see that.
They're right there. The Flyers. How about you, Kev? What do you think?
What about Blackhawks?
Blackhawks, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12th, right after the Capitals fans. People have Capitals fans more annoying, which is really I'm saying go Caps fans, man.
That's a big jump for the Caps fans. I agree.
That's a big deal. And right before Carolina Hurricane fans, people do not like Hurricane fans.
Well, I can pick one that's got to be in the top 5 because they're and that's Islander fans.
They are number 5.
Number
5. So you're right. So the only fan base you haven't gotten is number 4. Mike, I thought you were going to say this for sure.
Flyers.
Nope. Flyers are number.
Oh,
right above the Capitals.
If I'm going to say it for sure, it can't be Buffalo because they don't have any fans. Edmonton.
Ding, ding, ding. Very good, Mike. Yeah. We found Mike is very good at predicting where annoying fan base. You really. This is a specialty you have, and I totally appreciate that.
I have a master's in negativity. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Mike could really tap into it.
I know. But wow, so Buffalo fans are on there too. They are actually on there. They're not people say they're not, but some of the teams that I give that are in the top half of the league.
This is really based on more of an online presence, right?
It's just simply choose. It was an online survey, so there's a little bit.
Yeah, because
there's definitely
this.
Not like people are calling out and saying. Not like people were phoning people in the middle of the night.
No, but here's an example. Like the very vocal Islander fans online are the ones that can really be in your face and very, judgmental and everything else. They're not all like that. Like actually, a lot of people in the building are not like that. But the online fans are different than ones that show up at the.
Right.
Well, I'll give you the reason why Toronto is number 1 because you've got 7 fan bases, the 6 other Canadian teams, and Buffalo, who are constantly invaded by Leaf fans en masse every time the Leafs visit town, and they hate that. So that, of course, the Leafs are going to be number 1, 2, or 3 on their list in terms of annoying fans because they run into them constantly. Whereas, if it's a team like Washington, you'll have like a sporadic Ovechkin fan here or there. It's not going to be something that's really offensive to them. But when you have 15,000 Leaf fans come to Buffalo and invade the KeyBank Center, the 5,000 Sabre fans are pissed off.
Yeah. So
No,
what's
but
kind of
you know
interesting
what
to
it
me
is, just watching shows as someone from the U.S., when I watch Canadian shows, it's almost impossible to not talk about the Leafs the most of all these other teams. There's no way these other teams ever get equal time on any of these national shows, and that's where the fans get mad. They get mad at that.
I just go back to the kids in the hall skit. You're not going to take me to a Leafs game, are you? That's someone look it up if you have never Googled it if you want to have some fun. That's a classic. So the interesting thing about this list, I would have guessed that one of the better teams would have more annoying fans. Like people would think I would have guessed that the top teams would be the better teams, and it's interesting because I'll read the list. I'll just read the top 15 here. So we talked about Toronto, Montreal, then third is Boston, fourth Edmonton, fifth the Islanders, sixth Vancouver, seventh the Rangers, eighth Vegas. Vegas, that's pretty good too. I mean, and I don't really think of Vegas fans as annoying necessarily, but I don't know.
Well, I think fans are annoyed with Vegas because they've won so
maybe
well.
that's more of a winning thing. 9 Pittsburgh, 10 Philly, 11 Washington, 12 Chicago, 13 Carolina, 14 Tampa. Do you think of Tampa fans as being annoying?
I don't think they're annoying. I think people are.
I have a real hard time getting them to engage on anything here, so I don't know. 15 is St. Louis, which I've heard about. That's true. 16 Winnipeg. Surprised me a little bit.
Pete Tessier, there you go.
Right.
Winnipeg, I will say this. Winnipeg on the radio, very negative. Their local media, their local radio is very negative.
Yeah. Well, they got nothing to do with it up there, but just complain and be freezing like crazy cold. 17 is Nashville, which is again, go Nashville, fans getting up there. 18 Calgary, and that's all they have on the list. So, a lot of teams in there that I would have thought. I mean, Detroit fans have gotten their recommend. I've heard people talk about Detroit fans over the years, Kevin.
Yeah, they're not among the more. I don't know. That's just not what they do in Detroit.
I've been to Detroit a lot, and I'm really not annoyed by their fan base at all. Like, I've been annoyed by some others. I've not been annoyed by Detroit.
I would love to have seen how certain fan bases would react to this. Like the Kings fans would think, who Kings fans think are the most annoying, because Kings fans hate Anaheim fans. Like the Ducks.
Again, that's like Rangers Islanders. I get it.
Yeah, or Flyers Devils, and all that kind of thing.
Right.
But there is such a hatred, like for my friends who are Kings fans out there. Like I can't believe, I would like to like that guy, but he's a Ducks fan. I can't believe he's a Ducks fan. Why would he be a Ducks fan? That's what we hear all the time from Kings guys. It's very, very funny. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today, folks. I was going to show you my thing, but I can't get my picture. I'm going to show it. I'm going to show it another time maybe right before the holidays. I'll show it to you because I can't figure out how to screen share on it for some reason right now. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you all